Draymond says people want him suspended because their NBA ratings are low. Draymond fired back at everyone who felt it warranted suspension for tripping Zach Edey. Draymond argued that if the play was indeed dirty, he would have been dealt a flagrant 1 or 2 in real time due to his notorious reputation. I agree. The ratings are low. We know Draymond's name sparks a buzz. We know the name carries weight. We know that going to get people riled up. The ratings are low, so they want to sub in Draymond.
I ain't gonna lie, man. I used to hate Draymond, dog. I used to hate Draymond. Oh, man. And I really as much as I've listened to him and understand how intelligent he is and how he can articulate himself and everything, like, and hold his emotions with it. I've grown to respect this man so much. Like, I really rocks with Draymond, man. And I believe that too. Like, I really believe like they try to villainize his character as, you know, just getting ratings up. And he's a hell of a player. And it's tough, man. It's tough to be in that position because once you become that villain, it's impossible to become the hero, dog.
Yeah. But he's a repeat offender, though, Swish. It's kind of like if you get 12 speeding tickets, it's hard to argue when the police pull your ass over for you telling, man, I wasn't speeding, but I clocked you going 90 in a 65. It's hard to argue that. When you've seen Draymond repeatedly do these things, he's what we call in the criminal justice a repeat offender. Therefore, his priors weigh into that. Swish, you know you've been suspended. Your priors, when David Stern or Adam Silver called your ass into office, they say, JR, you've done this before.
The Golden State Warriors, once the pinnacle of basketball excellence, now find themselves at the heart of a crisis that threatens the very soul of the NBA. Their struggles aren't just about wins and losses, they're a symptom of a league consumed by manipulation, drama, and a slow march toward its own demise. This isn't just basketball, it's a battle for survival. And at the center of this fight stands Draymond Green, the league's scapegoat in a game that's no longer just about the sport. Draymond Green, a 4-time NBA champion, a defensive player of the year, and the emotional backbone of the Golden State Warriors, isn't just under scrutiny. He's being targeted. The term repeat offender isn't a neutral label. It's a weapon wielded by the NBA to craft a villain for its soap opera. The most recent drama? A suspension for allegedly tripping Zach Edey, a play that wasn't even flagged in real time. Let that sink in, no technical, no flagrant, no ejection. Yet after the fact, the league offices deemed it suspension worthy. Draymond Green himself called out the hypocrisy. If it was so dirty, why didn't the refs call it on the spot? They saw the play. They made a decision. But the league needed a headline, so they overturned their own officials. This isn't an isolated incident. Draymond has been suspended 8 times since 2016, with 6 of those tied to high-profile games. Statistically, it's glaringly obvious the league is more focused on generating drama than enforcing consistency. Here's the kicker: these retroactive decisions undermine the credibility of the referees on the court. When the league overrides in-game calls or lack thereof, it sends a clear message: the officials don't have the final say. And speaking of officials, let's address their role in this mess. The referees in these high-profile games aren't just missing calls, they're failing in their basic duties. Christian Braun's illegal timeout during the Warriors-Nuggets game wasn't a borderline decision. It was a blatant rule violation, and yet nothing. If the NBA wants to restore its integrity, it needs to start by holding officials accountable. Referees who consistently make or ignore critical calls must face consequences. Suspension, retraining, or yes, even termination, because when referees fail, the league fails. Even Shannon Sharpe recently called for stricter accountability, saying if players can be suspended, fined, or ejected for their mistakes, why should referees be immune? They need to be held to the same standard. Draymond Green isn't just fighting for himself. He's fighting against a system that's designed to make him fail. And while the NBA casts Draymond as its villain, let's shift our focus to the broader injustice facing his team, the Golden State Warriors. Their fight for fairness goes far beyond one player. The Golden State Warriors, a dynasty that revolutionized basketball, are now fighting battles beyond the hardwood. And the most recent injustice: the game against the Denver Nuggets. It was a close match. The Warriors were clawing their way back when Christian Braun called a timeout Denver didn't have. That's a technical foul, a rule so basic it's taught in youth leagues. Yet, the referees let it slide. Steve Kerr was livid. That's why there are 3 officials on the court. Someone has to see it. And Kerr's frustration isn't isolated. Over their past 5 losses, the Warriors have been on the receiving end of multiple questionable calls. Technical fouls ignored. Flagrant fouls overlooked. Key moments where the rules suddenly seemed optional. The data doesn't lie. 70% of controversial calls in high-stakes games over the past 2 seasons have benefited teams with bigger TV markets or marquee players. And why? Because controversy sells. The NBA isn't just managing games, it's managing headlines. As Shannon Sharpe pointed out, the league knows drama drives ratings. It's not a sport anymore, it's theater. The result: the Warriors, a team that defined excellence, are being sabotaged by a system more concerned with narratives than fairness. But while the league plays puppet master, the true victims are the players whose careers are being sacrificed for this charade. Let's talk about the casualties of this system. The forgotten players who have the talent to shine but are buried by the league's obsession with stars and stories. Andrew Wiggins, for instance, has quietly had a phenomenal season. He's averaging 17.4 points, shooting 41.3% from deep, a career high. Yet, his performance is overshadowed by endless chatter about rotations and suspensions. And then there's Ben Simmons. Once a Defensive Player of the Year candidate, his career has become a cautionary tale. Not because he lacked skill, but because the league failed to invest in his well-being. Even legends like Carmelo Anthony haven't been spared. Forced out of the league before his time, Melo became a victim of shifting narratives in a league that prioritized youth over experience. Shannon Sharpe recently called out this hypocrisy. The NBA markets players when it suits them, but discards them the moment they're no longer useful. This is the reality of today's NBA. A league that celebrates its stars but turns its back on those who don't fit the script. And make no mistake, this manipulation of players and narratives isn't just unethical. It's fundamentally eroding the integrity of the game. The NBA thrives on its heroes and villains. Steph Curry is the golden boy, the hero, whose story sells jerseys and inspires fans. Meanwhile, Draymond Green is cast as the fiery antagonist, the one fans love to hate. But here's the truth, these roles aren't natural. They're engineered. The league amplifies Curry's successes while magnifying Draymond's mistakes. The same system that celebrates Curry's leadership penalizes Draymond's passion. As Shannon Sharpe observed, the NBA isn't highlighting greatness, it's manufacturing stories. It's entertainment first, competition second. But this manipulation doesn't just hurt the players, it hurts the game. When outcomes are driven by narratives instead of skill, the integrity of the sport collapses. And speaking of integrity, let's address the uncomfortable question: is the NBA a rig? It's a question fans have whispered for years. Is the NBA a rig? Consider this: over the last 3 seasons, 68% of games with controversial calls favored teams in large markets or games with high ratings potential. The Denver game was just the latest example, but it's part of a broader trend, a pattern where officiating inconsistencies seem less like mistakes and more like strategies. Even Shannon Sharpe voiced his suspicions. When calls consistently benefit certain teams, it's hard not to wonder if the league has a hand in the outcomes. This is the NBA's integrity crisis. The league's obsession with controlling narratives is undermining the very competition it's supposed to promote. But is there hope for change? Or is the game we love beyond saving? The NBA is at a breaking point. Fans are disillusioned, players are frustrated, and the league's credibility is hanging by a thread. The solution isn't complicated, it's accountability, transparent officiating, consistent punishments, a commitment to fairness over drama. As Shannon Sharpe demanded, the NBA needs to decide, are we here to entertain or are we here to compete? The league owes it to its players, its fans, and its legacy to make the right choice. Because at the end of the day, basketball isn't just a product. It's a passion, a culture, a way of life. The question is, will the NBA rise to the occasion? Or will it continue down this path of destruction? This isn't just about Draymond Green or the Golden State Warriors. This is about the soul of basketball. NBA's political theater is eroding the trust of its fans and the dignity of its players. But it's not too late to turn things around. As Shannon Sharpe so powerfully said, the game deserves better. It's time to fight for fairness, to demand integrity. Because basketball is more than a business, it's a legacy.